Thank you very much. Though I feel a little out of place since it was just announced. Almost in the same sentence that I was winning an Excellence in Journalism Award and I'd worked at MSNBC. It was one of these things that just sort of didn't go together. I think by excellence in journalism they meant my time on Dancing with the Stars. So I am very honored. Thank you. I'm actually really honored. I don't have a ton of prepared remarks, but I'm very much honored to be here, and I'm grateful to be in such good company. I've run into a number of state legislators who, and I always think this every time I meet people from state houses in the rest of the country, they're so much nicer and less pompous than their counterparts here in Washington. No, I mean that. I mean that. I'm not going to name names, but I actually have, I'm about to embarrass someone, but I won't tell you who it is, but I was just talking to a state legislator who said he's from a Midwestern state where there's just tremendous pheasant hunting. I was just pheasant hunting actually in his state a couple weeks ago. And I said, oh, I just love your state, and it's just so great, and the food is great, and the women are pretty, and the birds are flying, and it's wonderful. And he passes me a note that says, I would love to have you stay at my house anytime, call me, we'll go hunting. I mean, it's just, very few senators do that to me. I will just say that. So anyway, I'm sorry, you know who you are, thank you so much. But that is just characteristic, I think. So I hope you all come to Washington. The Warren Brookes Award makes me think of Warren Brookes, who actually I thought of, and I remember when he died. I was here both when he was a force in the city, and it makes me feel old, and I remember vividly the day he died and feeling sad about it. And I was thinking of him weirdly just the other day, last night, and having nothing to do with this honor, but just independently of Warren Brookes. And I was thinking, how would Warren Brookes handle this story about the climate emails? Warren Brookes, those of you who didn't follow him, he wrote for a bunch of publications, including the Washington Times, which is in trouble now. He wrote in a different time, but he was very much gifted in explaining science in a way that ordinary people could understand and explain the public policy implications of science, something that is more relevant now maybe than ever in my lifetime. I'm 40, and not done very well by most people then or now. And Warren Brookes was great at it, and great at explaining what this means in absolute terms and what it's going to mean to you. And I wonder what he would do with the story that some of you may not even know about. I'm not going to pontificate or bore you with my views on it. By the way, let me just say, I'm going to try not to do that no matter what. I can't stand it when people blowhard stand up at the podium, particularly semi-employed talk show hosts, and tell you what's true and what they think is right, and basically try to cram their political views down your throat. So I really won't do that, and I will open it up to questions. And if, in the meantime, if you have any sort of comment or feel like disagreeing, please, shout out or throw a dinner roll or whatever. Most people hate being heckled, but after many years in cable news, working across from James Carville, it actually makes me uncomfortable if people don't shout at me while I speak. We have 4 kids, so it's not really a problem in my house. I'm quite at home, but you should know, just so I will be as objective as I can be. I promise I will be, whatever that means. But you should know, just in the interest of full disclosure, I'm not on the liberal side. No, I know. But I'm not sure if you really understand. I am literally this close to stockpiling weapons and food and moving to Idaho. I am. I mean that, actually. You're welcome to join me in my compound in Coeur d'Alene. In fact, after this, buy gold. No, sorry. I mock what I love. Trust me. But no matter where you are on climate change, no matter who you voted for in the last election, to sum up the story in one sentence, somebody got a hold of emails being passed between climate researchers, mostly at a European and a British university, but many of their colleagues in America. And the upshot of these emails was, we have a position on climate change, which is that it's imminent, it's real, its increase is imminent, it's a disaster for the planet, and it's man-made, some of which are probably objectively true, and most of which are open to debate and interpretation, but not in the eyes of the scientists whose emails were pilfered by somebody. And they admitted to one another in these emails that, well, we're going to hide some data. Literally, just come out and kind of said that. Just memo to scientists, subverting the scientific method, don't write it down, okay? Don't admit you're doing it. Just, it's like something Nixon should have taught us, but whatever. And yeah, so we're going to corrupt the data sets. We're going to keep other data sets from the public, and we're going to exclude from polite scientific discourse, i.e. peer-reviewed journals, anybody who doesn't agree with us. Because we know what the truth is. That's our starting premise. We know what's true, and we're going to try and make the data prove what we know to be true. Now, those of you who majored in theology in college recognize this, okay? This is a species. No, I'm serious. And I'm not even arguing the science. I'm a journalist and a Dancing with the Stars alum, so I mean, it's not like I'm going to call into question, the ice core samples because I'm not qualified to do so. But I'm qualified to comment on what I believe the scientific method to be and what I believe scientific inquiry to consist of, and that is a kind of relentless openness to new evidence, right? It's a question-asking process. And almost any process by which you reach a logical conclusion bears resemblance to that, right? It's all about, letting the facts drive your opinions. And something that we're very much lacking in Washington. But I thought, the climate research community would sort of take for granted, but no. And so you would think that this news would be met with a profound embarrassment by those who got caught, busted, you're cheating, we have you on tape, this is, To Catch a Predator, this is Chris Hansen in action, you know what I mean? You're busted. And B, would be greeted with delight by people who really care about climate change as an issue. Because they want to know as much as they can, or should. Right? That's the nature of it. Just tell me everything you know, just tell me, and then I'll formulate a conclusion. That has not been the response in either case. And third, you would think that this news would be met with slack jaws by the press. Climate change is at the very center of the national debate right now. Next week, the Copenhagen Conference, of course, is opening. Our current president will apparently make pledges about our intent to reduce CO2 emissions. This is a big deal. It's not going to pass the Senate, just in case you didn't know that, no chance. But still, it has symbolic importance, and it's a sort of indicator of where we're moving. And so you would think, holy smokes, the press finds out that data are being fudged. Page one. Instead met with silence. Silence. The New York Times had a piece on it day one. The Washington Post had a piece day two. And that was basically it. Broadcast networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, all of which I've worked for. No, not on the nightly news, evening news, on any of those channels. Now, why is that? Well, partly it's because journalists don't understand science and it makes them uncomfortable. But partly it's because it's a direct challenge to the conventional view. And the conventional view is, there are conventional views on everything, but the conventional view on climate is we know the truth, and if you disagree, you are not incorrect, not mistaken. You are either evil, which is to say you're in the employ of the carbon polluting industry in some manner, or you're just a moron. You can barely breathe unaided. That's how dumb you are, right? And so either way, you don't really deserve an airing. Your views are essentially illegitimate. We don't need to listen to you. I can't hear you. And so rather than a critic of or a skeptic of, you are a denier of. Right? That's how the press frames the debate. It's the people who kind of care about the future of this planet and our children, i.e. us, and they're the bad people, the deniers, the people who put their head in the sand, and for whatever nefarious, sick reason, doubtless they're having breakfast with Satan at the Four Seasons every Thursday, planning this. There are people who aren't on board with our assumptions, and we're just going to pretend as if they don't exist.